Hey guys, Casey in the kitchen, and I don't know if it's super cold where you are, but where I am, it's freezing, and they even canceled school today. So it was a snow day, which means cold, icy, snowy. I switched up my dinner plans, and my family said, please make us soup. So I had to rummage through my freezer to see what I had on hand and what soup I could throw together without having to go out into the cold and snow. So I'm calling this freezer soup, which is kind of contradictory, right? I don't really have a name for this soup. It's like a turkey, broccoli, potato soup. So let me show you how I'm gonna put this together. So down in my Dutch oven, enameled cast iron Dutch oven, I have some butter and some oil. I've actually used our garlic infused canola oil along with about 3 tablespoons of butter and got that nice and melted. So now I'm gonna go ahead and add in my veggies. So I've got onion, carrot, celery. Yeah, the carrot and the celery I actually had in the freezer. So if you ever have some extra veggies on hand and you feel like you're not going to use them up in time, one of my tips for you is that you can go ahead and chop up that onion, that carrot, that celery, peppers, jalapenos. If you buy too much of something and you're not going to use it up, chop it up, put it in a little baggie and put it in the freezer, because then it's ready to go whenever you do need it. And they're fine, especially in like soups and dishes like this. It's super easy to add those, and plus that cuts out a lot of your time that you need for cooking dinner. So all about saving time and saving money. All right, so the other thing I've added to this in the past is pepper, maybe like a red pepper. If you have part of that on hand, could be a green pepper. I like the red, orange, yellow, a little bit on the sweeter side for this particular recipe. The green pepper has a little more bite to it. So, but whatever, if you've got green pepper to use up, chop it up and throw it in here. The finer you chop it, the less people are gonna see it. That's your other tip. So use that food processor or the food chopper, the manual food processor, whatever you have on hand. Chop stuff up super fine and nobody's gonna detect that. But it's great veggies for you. All right, so we're just gonna get kind of a sear on there, and I'm gonna let that go just another minute. So then for my meat, so I had some turkey frozen that was leftovers. So, you know, sometimes you eat on turkey for a while after Thanksgiving and then you get kind of sick of it. Well, guess what? Throw it in a baggie, seal it up really good, throw it in the freezer, and then you can pull it out for a recipe you might need it. You could also use chicken in this recipe, or you could do no meat, whatever really makes you happy. So with that turkey, I took it out, thawed it, and then chopped it up super fine, and I'm gonna throw that in there as well. So I could have just done either a broccoli, like a broccoli cheddar soup by itself, but this way I get a bunch of extra protein and I'm using up something that I had in my freezer anyway. So good stuff to use up. All right, so before I add that turkey in though, I'm going to add in some flour. So I've got about, quarter cup to a half a cup of flour here. Once we start to get a sear on those veggies, so the flour is just going to help thicken this up. And that's going to be important, especially towards the end of the soup. Unless you like really watery soups, I call it watery, brothy soups. And then you don't have to add the flour. That's totally fine. So we just kind of want to cook off that flour, make sure that it gets nice and heated, mixed with the oil or the butter. That's why I add the butter to this recipe, is because butter and flour do something magical in cooking. So let that kind of thicken up and cook off before you add in the rest of everything. All right, now we're gonna add in our turkey. Again, you could totally do chicken if that's what you have on hand, and maybe you need to use that up. You could do ham. if you had leftover ham you needed to use, or even bacon. I mean, whatever, or nothing. All right, so once we give that a stir, and again, however much you like of these things. If you don't want to add very much meat, then don't add very much meat. Or if you don't have that much, it's all gonna taste delicious. All right, so then out of my freezer, I had leftover turkey broth because I cooked down the turkey bones. And so I'm gonna go, I thawed that out, and which you don't have to completely thaw it, but it just takes a little bit longer on the soup if you don't. So we're gonna start heating that up down inside of there. Plus I have some broth that I made as well with just like a powder, because I knew this wouldn't be quite enough and I'll probably have to add some more. So if you've got some leftover turkey broth or chicken broth, if you've cooked a whole chicken and then you cook down the bones and everything and made broth out of it, then that's a way to use that up. Next up, broccoli out of my freezer. So I've got 2 bags of this broccoli. Of course, you could use fresh broccoli as well, especially if you're trying to use it up out of your fridge. I'm gonna add in 2 bags of broccoli. Give that a stir. And then last but not least, so this is a really great recipe to make right after Thanksgiving. So you've got the leftover turkey broth, you've got leftover veggies, maybe you had carrot, celery, onion with your turkey, maybe used it in your stuffing and you've got some left over. You could use, like I said, the leftover turkey broth, leftover veggies, and potatoes. You could even use leftover mashed potatoes after your Thanksgiving or Christmas meal, whatever it is. So I don't have that. Another way to do it is just a bag of frozen potatoes. You could do cubes like this, or it could be more like a hash brown potato, whatever you have on hand. So we're just gonna add those in. And basically this is just gonna sit and cook and cook and cook and cook until everything is soft and ready. Basically those potatoes and the broccoli is what needs to cook, and then everything else is just melding the flavors. So I'm gonna slowly keep adding in a little bit more of this broth. At the very end, I'm gonna add in my cheese. I grated that up with our farmhouse grate, which I kind of love. It's just like these great big giant shredded cheese. Probably throw in a couple splashes of heavy cream, and that's about it. I'm also gonna add in some of our garlic herb seasoning. I thought that sounded really good to season that up. You know, those potatoes don't really have much flavor. Now the turkey does because the way I cooked it, and the broth does, so you don't have to over season, but I thought that sounded like a really good one to add together. So I'm just gonna cook this on like a 6 or 7, let it kind of boil and all those flavors meld, add the rest of that broth, top it off with the cheese at the end and some heavy cream, and there we have our freezer soup or turkey, broccoli, potato soup. So I hope you guys liked this recipe. Let me know what you're making for dinner. If it's cold where you are, maybe you'll inspire me to make something different. All right, guys, talk to you later.